I woke up this morning to another super ignorant comment from a Christian that claims we don't have to keep the Ten Commandments and that somehow the Ten Commandments is what the apostles are talking about in Acts 15. That's apparently the yoke we can't bear. Oh my goodness, this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments and that the commandments aren't grievous to us. That doesn't sound like a yoke that we can't bear. The commandments of God were the 10 commandments given at Horeb that the Messiah was then going to come and teach. In him performing the mercy, as it says in Luke 1:72, he's going to perform the mercy, which means he's going to remove the added law that was added because of transgression to those 10 commandments. Acts 15 is saying the same thing that Paul is saying in Ephesians 2. It's the exact same message. This is why you have to read line upon line. So, Ephesians 2. What do the Gentiles need to do to be grafted into the commonwealth of Israel and be no longer a Gentile? That's what Ephesians 2 is saying. Acts 15 is the same thing. They're going around declaring the conversion of the Gentiles. How are you saying the yoke that their fathers couldn't bear, nor they could bear, is the 10 commandments? But the few first commandments they give to the Gentiles who are believing in the Messiah that came to preach the Holy Covenant, 2 of the commandments are from the Holy Covenant. The 10 commandments. The other 2 commandments are from the other Holy Covenant of promise. Because Ephesians 2:12 tells you that if you don't keep the covenants of promise and you're estranged to them, you are still a Gentile, because a Gentile just means out of covenant now. Because the call no man common or unclean. All can be grafted into the commonwealth of Israel, because Israel was scattered into the Gentiles and never returned to their inheritance. They never got their identity back. So they're within the Gentiles. They're Gentiles in the flesh. They're called Gentiles by the Jews, the circumcision. And ironically, the yoke that their fathers couldn't bear was sacrificial law. What was the token of sacrificial law? What was the foreshadowing of sacrificial law even? Circumcision. That's the yoke they couldn't bear. And then he says, so essentially what they're saying is, the Pharisees were saying, they need to be keeping the sacrificial law. They need to be going to the letter of the law. They need to be going to the flesh, sacrificing their flesh and not their heart. Because circumcising your heart means that you keep the 10 commandments. It's an idiom. Circumcising your flesh means you go to the sacrificial law. But the Gentiles, the sacrificial law wasn't given to them. It was given to Israel. Israel transgressed the 10 commandments. Sacrificial law was added. But since the Messiah died, because the dispersed was within the Gentiles, he made it possible that the Gentiles could keep the Holy Covenant. It became their covenant as well. They could keep that Holy Covenant and receive the Spirit of God, just the same as anyone else. That's the gospel. So that's who they believed. When the Gentiles believed that that was the case, God can dwell with us too, because we believe the Messiah came to give us the covenant too. He made that possible. He gave us the Spirit. That's all that's being said in Acts 15 and Ephesians 2. The fact that you're saying the yoke they couldn't bear was the 10 commandments. So then they say, we couldn't bear the 10 commandments. So 2 of the commandments are going to be from the 10 commandments. Are you actually serious? They're just quoting from the 10 commandments. And you know why they say them ones? Because one of them, ironically again, because again, the Christians seem to think, oh, well, I keep these 4 commandments. No, you don't. Because you still do Christmas and Easter, and sacrificing meats to idols and being polluted with idols means that you're still doing the Jeremiah 10 Christmas tree. You're still repeating the same sin that Israel did to get cut off and divorced from God in 2 Kings 17. You're still doing those things. You're not the portion of Jacob. You're not going to be the first fruits. You're not going to be taken out of the wrath of God. Because the portion of Jacob isn't like them who do Christmas and Easter. This is Jeremiah 10 and Jeremiah 51. Even a rebuke to Mystery Babylon for spreading Christmas and Easter to the 4 corners. The portion of Jacob won't be like Mystery Babylon. But the Christian church has the Babylonian gospel. So the milk for the newborn babes in the faith is that they keep those 4 commandments, meaning what Ephesians 2:12 says, keep the covenants of promise that are within the law. Law just means Torah, which means instruction. So you need to hear the full instruction of God. The sacrificial law was in place until the times of refreshing. Those times are now. The Messiah refreshed the covenant. He ended sacrificial law. You don't need to go to the letter of the law. Go into the letter of the law. If you account that as righteousness, your heart is far from him. You don't actually have faith in who the Messiah even was. Don't go to the letter of the law. When you keep the covenant made at Horeb, the 10 Commandments, and then you learn about the rainbow covenant, when you do those few things, God can dwell with you, and he teaches you the book. He teaches you the riddle of sacrificial law. That was the whole point of it. There's so much goodness in the sacrificial law if you use it lawfully. Not go into the letter, not telling people they have to be circumcised. That wasn't the point. It was a token of circumcising your heart, which means keeping the 10 Commandments. The sacrificial law was the added yoke, the burden that they couldn't bear. That was the burden. But he's saying, don't keep the sacrificial law, that we couldn't bear that. But keep the covenants of promise. Keep the 10 Commandments, keep the rainbow covenant. That's not grievous. And it shouldn't be grievous. So you've got the Christians who say that that's grievous. And then you've got the Torah movement who are blending sacrificial law and saying we have to keep everything. You've just both missed the Messiah. And Peter even says this. You've stumbled at the stone of stumbling, which is the Messiah. He's became a rock of offense to you because you don't believe in who he is. Because none of you went to learn what Moses said about the Messiah. No one learned the difference between Horeb and Sinai. No one learned about the refreshing of the Holy Covenant. But guess who does? Jacob. The portion of Jacob who is not like them. Romans 10, Isaiah 52. These men and women, these servants, these maidservants are the people preaching the true gospel in the latter days. So if you don't know this milk, you should take Paul's advice in Hebrews 5 and 13. Drink the milk. Go and learn about the covenants of promise. And don't touch Sinai. Don't blend sacrificial law. Go to Horeb. Drink the life-giving water. Keep the 10 Commandments. And then pass it on. And God can dwell with you and teach you prophecy. If you don't know the milk, don't dare try to teach the gospel to people. Don't even dare try to strive against what the milk even is. Or don't try and teach the meat if you can't even drink the milk.